Mike Byrnes with another episode of Business Bests. Today's topic, I love PR. It is something that I think not a lot of companies or individuals do a great job with it. They are kind of sometimes afraid as small business owners or medium-sized business owners to dive into it, or they think it's too expensive. I do a whole presentation on how to get PR without hiring an agency. I'll probably pull some advice from that. But the reality is there's a thing called earned media and paid media. So paid media might be digital advertising. Earned media is really what you create on your own. So you could create your own website content, or getting PR actually is content that can be really valuable and can help you accomplish whatever you're trying to do. From a PR standpoint, why do you want to do it? I really question my clients, what are they trying to accomplish? Because PR can do a lot of things. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it really can help improve your business. So some people just want to see themselves in the limelight. Other people, they want to actually attain some business goal because of that. So you can have metrics to see if you're getting a return on investment. It really depends on what you're trying to do. You might have something really specific, like you wrote a book and you want to actually have more people be aware of that. So awareness is a big thing, but you might actually want to see those direct results. Like I said, that might be one of your things. So with the book example, are you actually driving people to a website where the book is? Are you then actually converting them to buy the book? So it doesn't have to be a book, but I'm just saying whatever you're trying to do, whether they attend your event, whether they sign up for your free class, your seminar, whether they come into your office and it's a prospect and you eventually convert them. One thing PR can actually help you do too is get more PR, and we'll talk about that snowball effect and how you can do that too. So one of the things that you'll find is that as you become an expert and are seen as a recognized expert, it helps in a whole bunch of different ways. So first things first is know that I'll caution people that I'm going to work with on PR about the hope that the phone will just ring off the hook all the time. So if we got someone in the Wall Street Journal, for example, the phone might ring, a couple calls might trickle in, but really that isn't the main benefit of PR. It's nice if that works, if leads call you and they keep flowing in, but it can have other benefits. One is when you're seen as an expert on anything, you're actually starting to close your sales cycle and actually shorten it, so people don't have to kick the tires as much. So if they become a lead and they see that you're a vetted expert in the industry, whether it's in the industry or out of the industry press, we can talk about that a little later on what to do. But as you start to become that vetted expert, there's a benefit that people just, if they don't even know you, they see you as an expert. You know, you might not even be the best at what you do, but because you've got a lot of positive publicity, people just assume that. So they don't have to question you and research you as much, so that sales cycle actually will be shortened. The other thing too is it can start to box out the competition. So if someone is checking you out, they're going to do research, maybe they've met you, maybe they haven't. Now they don't have to kick the tires with as many other organizations, firms, competitors, whatever you want to call them, because now once they land on your site or they meet you in person and then they see that you're this vetted expert in the industry or across all industries, depends, they now are like, wow, I want to work with this person. So they don't have to consider the competition. That's another great benefit. So shorter sales cycles, maybe a little less of a competitive landscape because you've now eliminated them from the consideration choice. Or if they're going up against another firm, if you're going up against another firm and that prospect is checking you out, if they see A versus B, A has been in the press a lot and B hasn't, it's just an easier decision, right? Most likely they're always going to want to go with A. One real technical benefit of PR is if you put it on your website, and you should, and you can get a backlink from the publisher site to your site. From the people that are SEO experts, search engine optimization, will tell you backlinks are good. So you're basically all these things that are pointing back to your site from other sites are going to help you come up higher in search engine rankings. So, and think about it, all these webs, like the World Wide Web, like all these webs that are connecting to you are more ways that, you know, a spider is going to catch a fly with all the different webs. So there's more ways that you can be found, obviously. But the reality is the benefit of backlinks is that it's just, you know, computers trying to see which site should rank higher than the other. So same kind of scenario, company A and company B. Company A has a lot of backlinks coming in and company B doesn't have any. Which one are the search engines going to rank higher? And, you know, Google is probably the one you want to weight the most. And I know for a fact, Google will show that option A higher because it has these reputable backlinks. And I say reputable, this is another thing too. You know, if you have a whole bunch of backlinks, but it's from websites that get no traffic at all, that doesn't help you as much as a publisher. So when you're getting the press, they might get hundreds of thousands of views, if not millions of views that come to their site. So Google and the other search engines are going to say, hey, wow, that backlink has a lot of weight that it's connected to your site. So we can talk about how to work with a publisher or reporter to try to put in the backlink because sometimes they don't want to have people going off of their site, but that's something we could talk about. So one really little technical benefit is that your site will now come up higher in search engine rankings just by having some good traffic. So I skipped over something related to online marketing is your webutation. I don't know where I picked that up at some marketing conference. I love that. It's your websites and your reputation online. So your webutation. And I've also heard of it as a digital footprint. I've heard of some other kind of cool ways of describing it. But it's really your brand and you and how you're represented online. So your website is going to be that much better, right? If you can display some of this press that you've gotten. When we talk about content marketing, and I've covered it probably in other videos too, Company A versus Company B again, the website that has a lot of fresh content that updates, I'm just going to make up a number, 100 times a year versus the one that updates 10 times a year, which one is the search engine going to show higher? Obviously the one that has a lot of fresh content. And so PR helps you accomplish that, and that content can actually give you a lot more credibility. So we'll go into how to maximize things online in a bit, but just want to let you know your webutation is another real good benefit of PR. With your website, you know, now I've talked about the 0 moment of truth in other videos, but your website now is making that first impression a lot of times. How cool is it to display that you've been published, that you're an author of articles or you've been on a news segment, whether it's TV or radio or something else, you're going to make a great first impression, right? So that first impression can carry on throughout the whole sales cycle. And actually, one of the other benefits is your clients are less likely to challenge you, right? If you're giving them advice and they know that you're a vetted expert in the industry, you know, you might not have as many PITAs. I might have talked about that before, but the pain in the ass client, you know, that they're going to be less likely to question your advice if you're seen as an expert. And oh, by the way, your whole client base is probably more likely going to want to stay with you. So your retention rates are going to be even better, right? Because if you're seen as an expert, why are they going to want to leave you to go to someone else that isn't an expert? So PR can have a lot of benefits, not just from the prospecting side, but it definitely can help you with your own clients. Same thing with strategic alliances. I've talked a lot about how to build those relationships up and how you can create a win-win. But you know, if they see you as a vetted expert and you've got a lot of publicity, they're more likely going to want to create a relationship. And then two, they're also going to want to stay with you. And that's a nice benefit we can talk about a little bit more. But if you are a regular, maybe you get a column in a magazine or a newspaper, and you can quote a strategic alliance, you don't always have to just give them a lead, right? You now can have a situation where the whole you scratch my back, I scratch yours type of relationship can be about exchanging new business. But if you're going to get them positive publicity, some strategic alliances will love that. And for them, it might be the only PR they get. So if you can build that relationship up with your whatever that is, a center of influence or strategic alliance, whether it's another professional or an association or whatever it might be, if it's positive in nature, they're going to love you for it. So another huge benefit of public relations. I probably skimmed over this a little too fast, but in a world where we search for things all the time, you're now going to want to not just show up on your website, so you can have your own social sites too, but to show up in a search result in a publisher's environment, whether it's their website or their social sites or their YouTube channel or whatever it might be, that can be really beneficial too. So that actually, that prospect that's done the research on their own can come to you directly. So sometimes it's maybe the phone's not ringing off the hook, but the traffic is, and you're getting a lot of traffic from not necessarily being in direct contact with these prospects. They're finding you throughout all the websites out there. I don't know if it's 1 billion websites. I always forget what the number is, but there's a lot of websites out there. And so if they can find you anyway, that is a fantastic benefit. So with your website, the other nice benefit too is, you don't have to just bury that in the news section on your website. So if you go to burnsconsulting.com, for example, I've been published 500 times. You can see I have that one page that actually tracks everything. It's got all the press hits, articles, interviews, all that type of stuff. But the other thing, if you go to my website, you can see is I have a slider, and I've talked about that in the online marketing videos. I'm a big believer of that carousel or slider on the front. If that's a differentiator that you've been in the press a lot, have it be one of those core things that comes through, part of your differentiators, part of your brand promise, whatever it might be. So if you're seen as a thought leader, and there's probably some better way of describing that, vetted expert, whatever you want to call it, that is just one thing that you can now actually maximize your content in your website. For example, I'm a speaker too. If I put out here all my speaker topics, but at the bottom I put in here's all my press hits, and you show all the little clips of all the little graphics of the logos of the press that I've attained. That whole story of a picture tells 1,000 words is so true, right? Someone doesn't even have to read any article, but they can see that image of all the different press hits and see all those logos with permission, obviously from the publishers. But if they see that, wow, that's someone I want to work with if I'm a prospect. Wow, that person is really a go-to expert. I can't believe they'd even work with little me. That's kind of the thought process. So that is benefits of PR in a nutshell. There's probably more we'll cover, but I just wanted to start there to get everybody level set of, it doesn't always just have to be that the phone rings off the hook. There's all kinds of other benefits that PR can deliver for your business or for you as an individual. Before we dive into some of the tactics, I will caution you too, PR, there's a little bit of a risk, right? So you can't necessarily control the message. There are certain reporters or journalists, news outlets that you're pretty confident they're going to only do something positive, but that's not always the case, right? So they can take something and turn it around. So if sometimes we're in this environment where negative news sells more than positive news. If you watch the local news on a local channel, it's usually sad things, right, or upsetting things, and then they do a little happy segment at the end, and that's up to you to figure out what the ratio in the world is. Unfortunately, we digest negative news way more, and there's all kinds of statistics that show that's the case. So be careful the type of journalists that you're dealing with, right? Are they trying to be the one that's breaking the story? They might have an ulterior motive of talking with you, they're trying to get around the door to get a story that you don't know they're trying to cover, right? So be careful with that. So a risk, you can't control the message. The other one is sometimes you get misquoted, and we could talk about some best practices so that doesn't happen, but that's just human error, right? So especially if you're typing in your reporter, you make mistakes, or you're kind of doing something from memory, or they just kind of, sometimes they summarize the quotes, so they take what you actually said out of quotes. If you read an article and it was all quotes. Like, nobody wants to read a transcript, so reporters do that, right? So it's the way that we want to digest news, and it's not that it's anything bad. So when they take things out of quotes, you're like, I didn't say that, but they're sometimes trying to summarize things, or they're trying to plug you into an article so it fits because they have some theme in their head. Be careful that happens. Just be aware that happens, I should say, and be careful with your strategy. I'm not a big believer of the old any press is good, like that, even negative press is good. I don't really subscribe to that. I know there's some people that do believe that, but be careful when you get into working with the media that could be a risk, right? And that's why maybe if you're really a novice, you want to bring in a PR professional. My whole spiel today is not that you have to hire one. I'm actually trying to give you advice so you can do it yourself, but there are times you want to pause and be like, I do want to hire a professional to, at least to teach me the way to guide me into this. So where do you start? I'm a big believer of research. You've heard me say that before, and researching your clients is a great place to start. What do they read? What do they watch? What do they listen to? And think about, sometimes media people make the mistake of not thinking about non-traditional press too. So it might be something that they're digesting that isn't a normal news source. Like, it's not ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, whatever. It is something that is a website that's just a blogger or some kind of newsletter type of communication. If that's going to your target market, it might be something that you want to consider. When you think about your strategy, you should not just think about national press. You should think about local press. If you're trying to bring in prospects in a certain geographic area, what's the press, what are the media outlets that would allow you to penetrate that audience? Maybe you do want to do the opposite. Maybe you start with a local presence, but you do want to have a big national footprint. And we talked about a digital footprint, right? So that's online. You can reach anybody with a website. So now you can start to figure out maybe you want to get in the national news. There are probably different thoughts on being in the national news might carry more weight because these are well-known publishers. Their brand carries more weight, so to speak. But if they're people that aren't digesting that national news, but they're digesting something local, that's maybe where you want to be. So one of the things you need to think about is in the industry press and non-industry press too. So I was just talking about whether it's national or local, but in the industry versus not in the industry is something you want to think about too. So I work with financial advisors a lot. There's all kinds of magazines, Financial Advisor magazine, Financial Planning, Investment News, and so on. That's examples of industry press. But they're advisors trying to work with wealthy people. So if you're trying to, figure out how to penetrate that audience, those wealthy people might not be reading those industry publications. So they might want to go with something that's more specific to their target audience. It's a little bit of give and take. Like, you might get one that helps you get the other. So for example, if you're a vetted expert in your industry, you're getting all this industry press, it's easier to then get the local press. So think about national versus local, industry press versus non-industry press. And a third thing to think about is whether you want to go for traditional or non-traditional press. So a traditional is a magazine or newspaper, being on a TV show or a radio program. Non-traditional would be, there are a lot of trends that are pushing towards non-traditional. So it could be an example of a blogger having a website. It could be an e-newsletter as opposed to a magazine. It could be, instead of a radio program, it's someone that has a podcast. All different types of things too. And you'll see that those traditional press outlets, the media outlets, have actually morphed, and sometimes they have some things that are a little different, right? A little non-traditional. So you might have somebody that actually used to have a radio program, and they realized, why not just do a podcast or have a YouTube channel or whatever it might be. So these people now, the powerful thing about the internet was it actually allowed people to not have the barriers there's barriers of entry that would keep the competition out, right? So in the past, you couldn't be a publisher because it costs so much to have a printing press and all the people and the delivery trucks and all that stuff. Now the internet is kind of leveled that, right? Like anybody can blast out an email. It doesn't cost very much, if anything at all. And so they can have a website and be seen easier. So you're starting to see, like it or not, traditional press in some ways is dying, right? So you're starting to see that evolution of probably way more different news outlets, but they're not traditional, right? So I've given the example before, if your target audience is working with widows, rather than being the Wall Street Journal or the USA Today or something really well known, you might just want to be on the funeral home's website with an article there or a video there, what someone should be preparing to do if they've lost a significant other. That might be that non-traditional press that you really want, that can be more powerful than everything else combined. So be really considerate of all the different ways that you can build a strategy. So national versus local, in the industry versus outside the industry, and then traditional press versus non-traditional. I would let you know that PR has morphed. So there used to be the traditional PR people, and then social media kind of came around. They work hand in hand, right? So you want more eyeballs on all your material. So the more that you are in the press, the more you want it shared. And actually these news outlets even have their own social media extensions too. So they're going to want people pushing out their information. So think about how you can use social media in between that traditional press and non-traditional, because in some ways it's a little bit of both. I want to cover really building a relationship with the press and how important that is. We are in this world where we're all busier and busier and busier. Well, if you think you're busy and your in-bin is bad, I would beg to differ that you are not as busy as someone that is a journalist, a reporter, an editor, a program director. They get on all these press lists. I know this firsthand as it happens to me. And boom, you get a press hit, a press hit, a press hit, all these different types of news releases that come out, pitches from every different angle. And before you know it, you're just a super busy person. And these journalists get overwhelmed. The other thing that's tough for them is that they now have all these deadlines that they might not have happened before. For example, if you wrote for a monthly magazine, I can remember talking to an editor that would try to rewrite the intro paragraph and maybe do that 3 or 4 or 5 times to just get it perfectly right. Or the heading, like they come up with 20 different titles and they'd play around with what's the best one. They will still try to do the best they can to have the best piece, but they don't have the time and the luxury of time that they used to have, because there's deadlines sometimes all throughout the day. So they might still work for a monthly magazine, for example, but now they have online contributions that they need to do to the website, and by the way, they need to share everything that they do on social media, and all of a sudden their day is kind of vanished. So be very sensitive to that, but know that they need you, right? So if you get in with the press, you crack through that nutshell or that force field that they might put up, that's a wonderful thing. But it's a wasted opportunity if they quote you once or they use you as a resource once and then you never hear from them again. So remember that it's a relationship industry. You'll hear me say humans want to work with humans all the time when it comes to prospecting, but that is also very much the case when you're working with the media. So how do you do that? Some of the best habits that you have or best practices you have with your clients are things that you can replicate. So one is know the style or the technique or the tool that they like to have you communicate with them through. So for example, someone might like a call out of the blue. Others might want the email in advance with the whole pitch in it. Others might just want, hey, I would like to pitch this idea. Do you have some time for an interview? Others might just want just a title or 5 titles. Here's 5 things that might be good articles coming up, or news segments. Doesn't just have to be in writing. So it could be, obviously something we listen to or something we watch. But as you start to pitch those ideas, know what works and what doesn't work and how to pitch them. Sometimes they might want to be communicated via text. If you can get their cell phone number, that can be really powerful. If they're super busy, maybe that's the way that you can actually crack the nut the best. If you get that type of relationship where they will allow you to text them. From a whole marketing standpoint, texts are usually the things that are most deliverable. They're not screened out as much, and they're usually opened. At least people skim them to see who they're from. So they can be really powerful. Obviously, you're really limited in how short of a communication you can have. The other one you might want to think about is social media too. So for example, like Facebook has Messenger, and there's other different tools that you can use to communicate. If you think that, again, our in-bins are crazy, imagine being a member of the press and it's just so overwhelming and they're not going to read every single one. Well, maybe they're not getting a lot of messages through social media. So this is where they might actually not go there as much, but they get a LinkedIn message from you. And oh, by the way, the LinkedIn message actually goes into their in-bin too. So it's 2 ways to be seen. But the reality is you now start to see that you have a little bit of a better chance to be seen through social media. So maybe that's something that you want to do. They also will notice notifications. So let's stick with LinkedIn, for example. If you get some press, for example, and you say, hey, thank you, such and such, author or journalist or whoever did this piece, you mention them and use the little at notification type of way to type out their name. Then it becomes a linkable thing within your mention of them. So then they'll be notified of that. And if that doesn't make any sense, I could clarify that better. But the reality is if you mention them when it's clickable, they'll get notified through that social network that you mentioned them. And if they're staying up on that, some might not stay up on it, but a lot of them like to know how their names are being used online. And if it's all positive, they're going to like you that much more for it. So another way to get noticed, not just from a direct message, but kind of an indirect way of them getting notified. So think about what's the right mix. There might be a different way to drip on reporters from time to time. Yeah, maybe they're going to get your newsletter, but they might get 100,000 of those. I'm making up a huge number. It's probably not that big, but if they get 100 of them a week, that's too many, right? So your newsletter might not be effective. Doesn't mean you can't put them on there with their permission. Maybe it's just a regular drip email. Hey, I loved what you wrote on such and such. If you ever need me as a resource, I'd be glad to help you on that topic. Or maybe it's something more aggressive where you say, hey, I have a really good opinion on X, Y, and Z. If you need me as a resource, let me know. Another one might be a mention of like, hey, here's a couple good ideas for articles. If you ever need me or if I can connect you, let me know. I'd be glad to be a resource for you. That type of message might really work well too. So what is the right cadence of working with a reporter? Part of it is the personal relationship piece. So how are you building that relationship? Do you remember their birthdays? Are you that close that you know their like what they love to do? What do they travel? Do they like sporting events? Do you know that they went to a game next week? If so, did you follow up and say, hey, how'd the game go? What was the final score? What was the best part? That type of interaction brings you closer, right? Keeps you top of mind, but actually makes them like you. If they're more likely to quote you if they like you, yes. Are they more likely to write something positive about you if they like you? Yes. So build on that personal relationship side of things. Along the lines of the personal relationship side is thanking them. Do you ever just send a note and say, thank you so much for quoting me. I can't wait to work with you again. It really means a lot. I was honored. You come up with whatever you want to say from a thank you note, but don't put a pitch after the thank you note. Just let them know that you really appreciate them quoting you. And that stuff they do appreciate. They're human beings too, right? So make sure you dedicate some time to do that. Special occasions, like for me, I put the members of the press on my Christmas card mailing. So I want them to know I'm a family man, and they get to see pictures of my kids and growing over the years. It's amazing. They'll stop you at a conference if I see a member of the press and be like, hey, your kids are getting bigger. I can't believe it. Thank you for sending me that card. So all kinds of ways to drip on them. So remembering their milestones, birthdays, etc. Last thing I'll end with is actually recognize something that they did in the press that had nothing to do with you and just say, hey, I was wowed. I really love that. Fantastic piece. And we'll talk more about that in a future video. But this is Mike Byrnes. I just wanted to thank you for tuning in while we're talking about thank yous. This is another episode of Business Best, and I really appreciate you joining me, and hopefully this advice is helping your business and helping you as an individual. Thank you again.